All right, thank you everyone. Welcome to this, I think, final session for the evening. This is the Databricks Notebook, front row of the Lakehouse. My name is Austin Ford. I'm a product manager here at Databricks, responsible for the Databricks Notebook.
And my name is Rafi Karlantic. I'm a product specialist here focusing on developer experience and data science and machine learning.
Awesome. I'm going to talk to you guys for a second, and then Rafi's going to come up and do a demo, and then we'll finish up with some conclusions. Teams or business functions within a company may manage data in different ways. They may generate or collect different types of data, ranging from tabular data to documents to images, streaming logs, time series, and so on. You might have one set of teams working on Azure, another set of teams may work on AWS or GCP, adding sort of extra complication to the mix. And each place data is stored has different underlying semantics and ways for controlling access to that data and meeting governance requirements. So navigating, this very complex setup that just sort of accretes over time can feel impossible, both for the people that are actually responsible for managing data and access to that data, and the people that actually need to use the data to turn it into value. And then the second big thing is, even if data is accessible, the developers who use it may be working in different environments, using different tools, and that can result in lowered productivity and slower results. And since these users may be operating in silos, they might not communicate with each other as well as they ideally would. Their tools might not be compatible with each other. They may not be able to reproduce the work that one of their colleagues did. And this can cause delay in the delivery of those insights that ultimately are driving the business value. And of course, whenever you're taking a data asset or any kind of piece of code from development to production, that can take a long time. So these two hurdles are because, hurdles are meant to be jumped, which is sort of the big thing at the top of this slide. And the reason that we say this is because Databricks provides an answer to these challenges via the Databricks Lakehouse. The Databricks Lakehouse, which you've heard a ton about during the course of this summit, unifies all of your company's data in one singular place, regardless of that data's type or source. That means you can leave your data lakes and warehouses where they are, while simultaneously making the data inside easier for users to access, simpler for your administrators to govern and secure. You can leverage the power of the open source data lake ecosystem, and you can bring all your data use cases together on top, ranging from data science to data engineering, machine learning, business intelligence, and so on. This is paired with the Databricks Lakehouse developer experience, which helps to accelerate your users' work and shorten the time to insights and impact. Databricks provides a powerful developer platform based around our collaborative notebook, which is the perfect environment for exploring data, discovering insights, sharing those insights with key stakeholders, and transforming those insights into production assets that then can continue to deliver value over time. And Databricks also supports other popular developer tools for when you need more than a notebook. So this image of the Lakehouse should be very familiar to you at this point. We're going to talk about the orange layer, which is the developer experience, like I said. This is the layer that really enables you to collaborate on the same data, transform that data into insights. It's the perfect home for all of your development workloads, whether they are warehousing, engineering, streaming, data science, ML, et cetera. And so altogether, this image of the Lakehouse dramatically simplifies your architecture for all your workloads. You have a lot of freedom in how you evolve your data strategy. You can remove walled gardens, and you get consistent experiences across all clouds, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel for every cloud platform that you have to support. And so now I want to talk about the notebook in detail, the core of the Databricks developer experience, and what we think of as being the front door to the Lakehouse. Our vision for the notebook has 3 parts. First, we want the notebook to be a world-class data-native developer experience. We want it to accelerate the time to insights, speed the development of data assets, and produce outsized value. Once these assets are ready, we want the notebook to provide simple paths to take those assets into production with minimal maintenance overhead. And of course, we want it to be an awesome code editing environment with all the usual ergonomics that users know and love, like code completion, code formatting, et cetera. Second, we want the notebook to be the foundation for the sharing and consumption of data insights at our customers. We want sharing your insights with the right stakeholder at the right time to be effortless in Databricks. And we want the notebook to provide the perfect tool for not only creating those insights, but viewing and consuming them. Third, we want the notebook to be our user's portal to the power of the entire Databricks Lakehouse. We want the notebook to make it easy to access Databricks capabilities when users need them at the right time and in the right place, bringing the Lakehouse to users' fingertips. So that is the vision, but what is the notebook? The Databricks Notebook is a code-first development tool. It enables you to interact conversationally with your data and build code assets around the insights that you uncover. With it, you can iteratively explore and visualize your data, create ETL pipelines, write reports, prototype and train ML models. If you've used Jupyter or other notebook products before, then this is going to be a very familiar environment. But the Databricks Notebook is more than just your average notebook. It is multi-language. You can develop in the notebook using Python, SQL, Scala, or R, and you can mix and match these languages based on your familiarity with them and what is right for your use case. It is a collaborative notebook. You can work on the same notebook document with your colleagues, just like in Google Docs, just like collaborating like that document in Google Docs or Excel sheets and so on in Office 365, Office, the modern Office product. The notebook is compatible with the Jupyter ecosystem, so you can use all of the standard Python libraries and tools you're familiar with. It is an ideal tool for exploratory data analysis. You can efficiently explore, visualize, summarize your data with our notebook's built-in charts and data profiling capabilities. It is easy to adapt to your individual use cases. You can install libraries and use local modules as needed in familiar software development practices. It makes reproducing your work easy. The notebook automatically tracks changes you make with its version history, and when you need to use version control, the notebook works seamlessly with Databricks repos Git support. The notebook makes getting to production faster. You can create automated jobs from your notebooks with the push of a button, and you can create dashboards for your stakeholders out of your notebook's results just as easily. And then lastly, the notebook is enterprise ready. It has enterprise-grade access controls, identity management, and auditability built in. So I want to dig in a little bit on these capabilities and highlight some of the exciting features that we have coming soon to the notebook. As I mentioned a second ago, the Databricks Notebook enables you to mix and match from Python, SQL, Scala, and R to accomplish your goals. Our users love this flexibility. It enables them to use the languages they prefer to get their job done. To make moving between languages even easier when working with Python and SQL, you can now access the results of a SQL cell directly as a Python data frame. This is a really cool capability that we've just released. This means if you're like me and you tend to pull your data using SQL and then slice and dice that data using Python, you'll no longer have to write the boilerplate code that you need to convert those SQL queries into Python before exploring those results. Another feature that is coming soon that we're also excited about is support for the Python code formatter, Black. Black is a tool that enables you to restyle your Python code according to the Python standards that everyone knows and loves. These are the PEP 8 standards. This has been a frequent request from our customers who are looking to have more uniformity in their code bases, not to mention make their code just easier to read for their colleagues here in pull requests. The second big one is collaboration. So the Databricks Notebook also enables you to collaborate in real time with your colleagues, which we at Databricks think is super important since we believe that teamwork makes the dream work. Whoops.
Repeat the question.
Yes, so the question was sort of starting with the new capability for SQL results to be captured by Python variables, which is something that we just released and are excited about. And the question was, I think, is the same thing available for Scala? And the answer is not currently. That's something that we could look into based on customer feedback and sort of the use cases that we hear. So I'd be really interested to hear and what your use cases would be. Awesome. All right, so collaborating in real time. We think this is important. Teamwork makes the dream work. In particular, you are now able to share the same view of a notebook with your colleagues and be aware of who is viewing that with you using the notebook's co-presence capability. So you and your colleagues can be in the same notebook at the same time, working on the same code. You can edit that code alongside your colleagues in real time, iterate jointly on the work, debug it, build out its success together. And then lastly, you and your colleagues can comment on each other's work, just like in Google Docs, enabling you to alert your colleagues to action items they need to address or interesting findings that may alter the course of action on that piece of code. The next big thing is that Databricks notebooks are compatible with the Jupyter ecosystem. It's been true for a while that you can use open source libraries natively in the notebook, which means that you can take advantage of all of the great work that has been done in the open source Python data science community. We've also been working very hard for the past year to introduce the core machinery of the Jupyter ecosystem into the notebook, and we are excited to deliver these features actually, I think last week, essentially. The core of this effort has been adopting the IPython kernel as the execution engine for Python in the notebook. This is the same engine that powers the Jupyter project. It is now generally available with the release of DBR11. We are also have also introduced support for the ipywidgets framework inside of the notebook. This is Jupyter's framework for UI controls and interactivity. And here on the sort of right side of this slide, you can see a simple example of a chart that interactively responds to the setting of a start and end date for the displayed data. It's a very basic illustration of what's capable using ipywidgets. This builds on top of the IPython kernel and is public preview on AWS and Azure with 11.0. It'll be coming to GCP with DBR 11.1. And then lastly, later this year, we will be supporting storing your notebooks in Databricks repos natively using the Jupyter IPyNB format. This will simplify the process of bringing your existing Jupyter notebooks into Databricks and also enable you to view the rendered notebook in your Git provider if you're used to viewing rendered Jupyter notebooks in GitHub. Next, the Databricks Notebook is ideal for exploring your data quickly and efficiently. You can create interactive charts directly from your data results with just a couple of clicks, making it super easy to illustrate and develop deeper understandings of your data. With a push of a button, you can also create data profiles that capture the essential properties and summary statistics of your data, like count, null count, minimum, maximum, mean, so on. Together, these features eliminate the need to manually code your visualizations and basic statistics and help you get on with the deeper parts of your work. Very soon, these capabilities will be getting even better, and I'm hoping this is true in like the next 2 weeks. We will be making it possible to create multiple charts and data profiles from a single data table result in the notebook, and we will be introducing the same charting capability that you can use today in Databricks SQL into the notebook. This means you'll be able to create better and more beautiful visualizations, and you'll be able to configure and customize those visualizations more easily using the same chart editor that is available today in our SQL product. Since we introduced Databricks SQL last year, this is a feature our customers have been clamoring for, and we're really excited to deliver it. We're also super excited to announce the public preview of Bamboolib in the notebook. This will also be on AWS and Azure with the release of DBR 11. Late last year, we acquired a company called 8080 Labs. In fact, the founders are in the room at the moment. We were super excited about their flagship product, Bamboolib. It's essentially a graphical user interface for pandas, which is the standard Python data science library. It enables you to use all the capabilities and powers of pandas without having to write the code yourself. And then on the right here, you can see the process for filtering the rows of a data frame in Bamboolib. You just have to search for filter rows in the search box. When you select it, you see a little UI that asks for the relevant information required by pandas to perform a filter. Once you've filled in those required fields, clicking execute generates a new data frame filtered to your specifications. Voila. So with Bamboolib, you can prepare, transform, visualize, explore your data using a UI. You can be more efficient in your work, write less boilerplate code for the simple operations like filter, merge, join, group by, aggregate, et cetera, that you need to do. And even more, when you are using Bamboolib, it automatically generates the pandas code for these operations for you. This makes the operations reproducible and provides you with a great starting point that you can adapt and customize to your needs. We're excited to see what users think about Bamboolib and Databricks now that we've released the public preview. Please try it out on AWS and Azure today and on GCP soon with DBR 11.1. Next up, the Databricks Notebook can be easily adapted based on your use cases and needs. We have a feature called Notebook Scope Libraries that enables you to install libraries with a simple %pip command in the notebook, just like you're used to if you're familiar with Jupyter. We know it is very common for developers to share compute resources on Databricks. Users may be working on large shared clusters to save costs. This means that any changes to the libraries installed on those clusters might break other users' work. So, under the hood, the %pip command installs libraries into a virtual environment that is only accessible to the notebook you are using. This means you can install libraries or update them to the appropriate version for your work without worrying about how those changes will affect other users working on the same underlying compute resource. Also, when you work in repos which provide Git support in Databricks, you can use arbitrary files in conjunction with your notebook. You can break apart your notebook's code into modules for more sustainable development, and you can import those into your notebook using standard import statements. The last notebook capability I want to talk about at the moment is its enterprise readiness. The notebook provides full access controls and identity management built in, so you can easily choose which users or user groups should be able to read, run, or edit your notebook. It also makes it easy to share your notebook with others so they can take advantage of all the hard work you've put in. When you share with an individual, Databricks sends them an email so they can view your work with a simple click. You can also see all the changes and activity that happens in a notebook. Access to notebooks is logged to audit logs, and very soon we will add audit logs for all cell executions so you can see exactly who is executing what code in your system. All right, so now you've finished the exploration part of your work. How do you take that asset you've created through to production? Some of our favorite capabilities in the developer experience of Databricks are those that make it easy to take your work to production. In particular, we enable you to take notebooks themselves to production with just a few clicks. We take away all the overhead and make it simple for the notebooks powering your ETL pipelines, reports, dashboards to repeatedly deliver value over time. Sometimes, though, you need more than a notebook to productionize your complex projects, and in these situations, Databricks enables you to use your favorite tool to go through those last miles of development and productionization. So how does this work? First, we enable you to create dashboards directly from the results of your notebook. You can easily create a view of your work that your stakeholders can consume. These dashboards can be made interactive, and then using Databricks widgets in your dashboards, you can easily enable the consumers of your work to slice and dice your results based on the parameters they choose, which helps them to get the understanding they need to take action. As I mentioned before, we also make it easy to set up your notebooks to automatically run on a schedule. This uses Databricks workflows, formerly known as Databricks jobs. This is as easy as a push of a button. You can choose the schedule, compute resources, any parameters or alerts you want for the scheduled execution. And on AWS and Azure, you can pin this scheduled notebook execution to Git references to ensure the right version of the code is being run in production and maintain that extra layer of governance. This is a capability our customers have been clamoring for, and we are really excited to be able to provide it to them. Databricks also supports you in using software development best practices with your data assets. With Databricks repos, you can store your notebooks and other code assets in repos and use all of the capabilities of Git version control. You can collaborate with your colleagues on projects using branches that prevents you from collaborating each other's work. All changes are logged as part of the repo's Git history, enabling users and administrators to track changes to the code and reproduce past code state. And administrators can set up protected branches in Git providers, setting up guardrails and governance patterns for code moving to production. Furthermore, with our support for arbitrary files in Databricks repos and the Databricks file editor, you can easily refactor your notebooks, splitting them into slimmer, focused modules and shared libraries that are simpler to understand and maintain. These modules and libraries can be developed alongside your notebook, and with the convenience of the %auto-reload magic command, you can invoke the latest versions of your libraries as you are working. Databricks also supports you in testing your notebooks using your favorite testing framework like PyTest or unit test if you're writing Python. You can run test suites manually using testing notebooks, or you can invoke test suites using the command line interface of the Databricks web terminal. Once they are ready, you can also then automate these test notebooks to automate the testing of your code by scheduling notebooks using workflows. And then finally, Databricks supports you in automating your code testing and development or deployment via CI/CD. You can easily set up your integration test suites to run in Databricks using the repos API and our support for the webhooks of your Git provider. And you can continuously deploy your latest production code off your chosen production branch using the workflows integration with repos to execute jobs against the head of the production branch, or really whatever Git reference you want to execute against. All right, awesome. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague Rafi, who's going to walk us through an end-to-end demo.
Excellent. Thank you, thank you. Okay, let me just switch this over. Okay. All right, perfect. So thank you very much, Austin, for going through all of that. I'm going to quickly run through some of the amazing features that he just talked about, including some of the best practices. So Here in GitHub, we have a repo that's actually publicly available. You can go check this out yourself, called Notebook Best Practices. So I'm going to grab this URL, and I'm going to come into Databricks repos, and I'm going to actually create a new repo from this. Okay, and we'll call this Notebook Best Practices. Okay. Okay, so now we're integrating we're pulling in the code that we have in version control to Databricks repos. And now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new branch, because I'm going to make some changes here. So we'll call this branch, again, Data and AI Summit 2022. Okay, great. All right, so now we're working on this branch. And let's take a look at some of the code that we have here. There's a few notebooks that we have, and I'm going to actually focus on this first notebook that is already been modularized. We've already gone and taken our initial analysis and pulled it out into code modules. And what I'd like to show is how we can update code in Databricks using the files in repos, and then automatically reload functions that we have. So in this particular repo, the code that we have is in this code analysis folder in this transforms.py file. So if we take a quick look here, we have the definitions of all of our functions, and then we import these functions in our main notebook to perform the basic ETL tasks that we have. This notebook basically goes through and gets some data from the web for latest COVID cases and hospitalizations, and then we go through and read that. We filter it for a specific country. We wind up pivoting it from a long to a wide format, and then we create a Spark data frame from it, essentially. Okay. So now if we wanted to, we could come into the transforms.py file and add more functions, and then they would be automatically available from the import statement that we have here. We wouldn't have to rebuild the package or anything like that, or push our code to GitHub and then reload it. We could simply just keep iterating within Databricks itself. Okay. In this case, I am going to make one change. We're going to change this to filter for the country being the United States. And then we're going to save this table to Delta. Now, I'm going to show two ways that we can visualize this to highlight some of the features that Austin talked about. The first is going to be using the display command, and this is going to open up the new visualizations that we have that have been unified from Databricks SQL to the notebook interface. Oh. Looks like Delta bailed me out. That's okay, this table is already there. All right, so here you can see we have a couple different metrics for COVID hospitalizations from the beginning of the pandemic until now. We have this in a tabular format that we can sort by the various columns, but we can also look at a data profile using pandas profiling under the hood that will give us a description, like Austin showed in his slides, of the various the statistical distribution of the values for the columns that are in the data set, and the data types, and so on. So in addition to this, though, we can, I might not be in a workspace that has this, these visualizations. So one second. Let's come over here. Okay, let's come over here. Let's take a look at that table one more time. Okay, there we go. So same data, different workspace. And now what I want to do is create a new visualization that is using the same visualization editor that we have in Databricks SQL. Thanks for your patience on that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a line chart. And on the x-axis, we're going to have the date. And on the y-axis, we're going to add the daily ICU occupancy, and we'll also add the per million. Okay. And then we'll simply save this. And now we can have a nice visualization of the occupancy over time for, and we've used the same visualization that we have in DB-SQL here in the notebook. So one of the nice things about this is that we can produce multiple visualizations here in tab format, just like you would have in Databricks SQL. And these are highly interactive and subsettable and so on. So this is really a pretty big upgrade over the visualizations that we had in Databricks Notebooks up until now. OK, so now for the next thing, I'm going to flip back over here. And I'm going to use the %pip install. Uh-oh. Technical issues. OK, we're going to install Bamboolib. I'm going to show you how we can launch Bamboolib from the notebook and perform a similar kind of analysis through the UI that we had in our code above. OK, and to do that, we simply need to import Bamboolib as BAM and then run the command. And this is going to use IPython widgets under the hood to launch this. OK, great. All right, so we have a few different options here. We can actually go get the CSV that we downloaded from the web in the first cell, of the first couple cells of the notebook, and we can explore it that way. Or we can load tables that we have in the metastore and begin working with it that way. So in this case, I'm going to get the COVID analysis data from down here. Actually, you know what? I think I might have to use the table. So let me go back. OK, we'll use the default database. We'll get the COVID stats data. OK, I'll remove any limits on the data here. This is going to pull it into a pandas data frame. But I know that this data set isn't too large that it's going to cause any kind of memory issues, so there's no problem with that. So we'll execute this. This is going to go ahead and pull the data from the metastore. And here we have our output. Now I can come in here and I can inspect the statistics of the distribution of values in this column. And there's a lot, basically, that we can do here purely through the UI. We can look at categorical values here. We can plot the different variables in our data set against each other to understand the relationship to each other. And what we can also do is use a whole series of actions to actually go through and filter and subset and transform this data set. Now, in this case, we've already gone through and done that. But just to provide an idea, let's say we were to go through and filter for cases where the daily ICU occupancy was maybe greater than 100. So let's filter for rows where the daily ICU occupation is greater than 100. OK, great. And again, for the purposes of time, because we're running out of time here, if we were to look at the code that's been built up here, you can see that as I'm clicking through the Bamboolib UI, this is generating code behind the scenes that we can then use that and put that in a new code cell and run that. So this is very, very useful for a few purposes. For people who are new to Python, maybe they're more familiar with SQL, but they want to bridge the gap between SQL and Python. This is a really, really nice way to learn how pandas syntax works and what it looks like. It's also a way to provide greater accessibility to the Lakehouse for people who may not even necessarily know how to code very much at all. And for more seasoned practitioners, it's still a way for you to move more quickly and accelerate the time that it takes for you to build up a basic pipeline, as Austin had mentioned before. OK, now in terms of the best practices here, so I've made some changes in this branch. So if I were to go ahead and commit these changes back to the repo, I'd have the option to make a pull request, and that would trigger tests that we've written. So let's take a quick look at those tests just real quick. So in our project folder here, we have our tests defined over here. We have a test data set that we use, and we also have all of our tests defined here. So this can, as Austin mentioned, we can run this from a notebook. We can invoke this from a notebook, or we can have this just be triggered as part of the CI process when we create a pull request in Git. And just to show, if we come over here and look at the actions in GitHub, in this particular one, we don't have so many, but if we were to go to, for example, this one here, we'll be able to see by using GitHub Actions with Databricks, we can actually, if we have the GitHub workflows directory in our project, we'll be able to actually trigger those when we make pull requests and so on. So in the interest of time, I'm going to hand it back over to Austin. Let me do the split screen again.
Awesome. Thanks, Rafi. Just to quickly kind of recap and conclude what's possible to do with the Databricks Notebook today. Today, it's possible to collaborate with your colleagues in our multi-language interactive data native notebook that unlocks the power of the Databricks Lakehouse. You can pull data in the notebook with SQL, explore that data in Python without having to write any additional boilerplate code to convert. You can quickly and efficiently explore and visualize your data to derive shareable insights that are delivering that meaningful business value. You can perform low-code exploratory data analysis with Bamboolib, which removes the need to write the pandas code needed for exploration and instead generates that code from your operations. And you can use ipywidgets to turn insights into interactive applications for your stakeholders. You can take your work to production using repos for version control and Databricks workflows for scheduled automated execution. You can employ software development best practices with your assets in Databricks, ensuring that your code is modular, well-tested, and deployed in a governed way via CI/CD pipelines. And then very soon, you'll be able to convey insights using the new, easily configurable, and beautiful visualizations that we are bringing to the notebook from Databricks SQL. And we'll be expanding the reach of ipywidgets and Bamboolib to GCP with the release of DBR 11.1, which is coming soon. And then what about just a little bit further out? Over the next year or so, we're going to be making some big changes to the notebook to bring you the best interactive development experience in the market. In doing so, we are focusing on a few key areas. Making exploratory data analysis in Python and SQL easy and awesome, bringing all of your favorite programming ergonomics features like code folding, static code analysis, jumped definition, and more to the notebook, optimizing the experience for sharing and viewing the insights derived in notebooks, bringing a fresh, new, modern UI and UX to the notebook so it is easy and intuitive to use, and of course, continuing to invest in the performance, reliability, stability of the product so that you have the best possible experience while developing in the notebook. On the right, you can see some of our early ideas, and just as a note, these might change a lot before they are finally finished. We're excited to see what our users think as we start rolling out these changes over the next several months. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions?
Yes, if there are any questions, we'd be happy to discuss.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. Just a question. The Bamboolib, the integration with the notebook, is still available in the current version of the notebook?
It is available with DBR 11, which was just released. Does anyone remember the date off the top of their head? A couple weeks ago. So it is available today in Databricks. All you need to do is import the library, and you'll have access to it. And you'll be able to play around. In the latest runtime.
Any other questions? All right, thanks for joining us.